panel. We've got a lot of nice, diverse perspective to pick the brains of for this next little bit. I think you just got a round of introductions, but I'll circle back right quick. We, of course, have Tristan here, the CMO of exSat. Welcome, welcome. We also have Julian, the CEO of Bedrock. We have Ciara, the founder of C Squared Ventures. And then we also have influencer and partner of Async Capital here, Vincent. So thanks, welcome everybody to the stage, and we'll kick things right off. So one thing that we've noted as a criticism in the past for Bitcoin, of course, is price volatility. I'm interested to know from anybody in the panel any sort of perspective around any fundamentals or attributes of Bitcoin that you guys would point towards as ways to really improve sentiment and bolster the support for Bitcoin at this point in time. So any perspective around parts of Bitcoin that should be celebrated in retrospect of that?
I might start with a very simple kind of view that I have. I think the price of Bitcoin is going up and down and up and down, and the market is really struggling. Like altcoins are really having a challenging time. It's almost all-time lows for altcoins. But Bitcoin has shown a lot of resilience. The launch of ETFs has really fast-tracked the performance of Bitcoin. Like we're seeing all-time highs well before the halving, which I think is rare, but probably an indicator that there's a lot of interest in the ecosystem outside of the price side of things. There's really this proliferation of alternatives, right? So this has happened over the past year or two. There's maybe 70 plus Bitcoin layer 2s, and it shows a reinvigorament. It shows a real interest in the Bitcoin ecosystem, shows a collective spirit by everyone trying to, really grow the ecosystem. And that, I think, is a really positive sign. And whilst the TVL lags a little bit, TVL is a bit of a funny metric. I think if you take price away, you look at the activity, the amount of people building and developing, and even just at 2049, there's so many Bitcoin events, and I look at that and I think, wow, there's a lot of interest in the ecosystem.
Yeah, so I think first of all, Bitcoin is a topic that every single TV channel is talking about every day right now. Compared to a few years ago, Bitcoin is only mentioned if there is a 30% price crash or pump. But right now, it's talked as the same as gold. People are trying to analyze the mining situation, the custodies, the policies towards it in every single country. Even Trump has to address it in natural, right? So, from that perspective, it is a financial asset, is as common as gold. And secondly, I think since last year there is a clear movement towards Bitcoin renaissance. Because ever since 2017, we have not heard that much innovations towards Bitcoin, right? We're trying to make it, having execution layer, having data layer, having so much more that can be done. From our perspective, is how to make Bitcoin better than gold. That is to make it yield bearing, based on various methods, as well as make it liquid, so you can use it in different DeFi, etc. So I think these two factors are really making us very bullish about Bitcoin.
We're talking about reasons for volatility of Bitcoin, right?
Yeah. So why support Bitcoin in the face of price volatility is the question. Yeah.
So the reasons for Bitcoin volatility, I think many aspects. But to begin with, the correlation between Bitcoin and macroeconomy, Nasdaq, S&P 500, has been constantly increasing in the past 6-7 years. So I think macro has a very big impact on Bitcoin right now. As we all know, U.S. election is going on. So which political party actually won the election have a very big impact on overall fundamental policies and regulation and compliance around Bitcoin and crypto in general. I think that's probably going to be the biggest factor that's going to affect the price of Bitcoin. And then speaking of regulations and compliance, in the past we've noticed in the industry overall there are spot ETF getting approved. There are licenses for different exchanges around the world getting approved in different countries. That's all going to be adding different layers of liquidity into the Bitcoin, not just the Bitcoin as a currency, but also the ecosystems, right? So it's gonna get access to institutional liquidities, and then later on having impacts on bringing liquidities from retail as well. So that's gonna have great impacts. And then speaking of Bitcoin ecosystem itself, constantly improve scalability and efficiency of the Bitcoin network is a central topic. I think also one of the problems that Axie is trying to solve right now. So if that's going to be solved and scalability and TPS on Bitcoin is going to be improved significantly, then we can see mass adoption of the applications happening on the Bitcoin networks. That's going to help, of course, for just getting stronger demand for Bitcoin overall.
Yeah, 100%. So I've already heard of some of these optimizations and enhancements that we see on the horizon when it comes to Bitcoin. As many of us know, and as was mentioned already on the panel, sometimes people think of Bitcoin kind of like gold in that it is in some senses kind of illiquid or hard to work with. And some people might consider that to be a feature to some extent. But we have seen kind of this uprise in L2s here recently that are enabling advanced smart contract capabilities. I'm interested to know from anybody on the panel, what aspects are you most optimistic about with the advances here, introducing more advanced logic to introduce new use cases?
I'll probably start with Yeah, I'll probably start with this question. So basically, I believe that first, the Bitcoin is essentially the vast kind of like a common ground for everyone participating in crypto. Like you can be like Ethereum Max, you can be Solana or whatever, even Cardano and Max, right? But you gotta be some kind of like like a Bitcoin believer. That's essentially where why we come into this place, right? So I believe that at this point, besides being like a major asset, we got the ETF, we got everything basically access to the like the whole transactional world. It is probably the only crypto asset that is separating the very stable fundamentals from its utility. If we take a look at, say, like the Ethereum or Solana, basically they're mixing the two together, right? Their fundamentals always change because they are like inflationary, and also like they have validators or stuff. Then utility is basically the stuff that's supporting its fundamental value, but Bitcoin is not. Bitcoin is supported by its consensus, right? This is basically everyone can believe in it. That's the thing. A utility is basically add on the top of it, right? Like gold, it's exactly the same as a gold, like a commodity. In itself, it has like people believe this is something worth of, got some kind of value. But on top of it, you can always have some like a new innovations, new kind of utility out of this. So that's exactly, I believe this is why we need to, like keep rolling out like a different use case based on the what we already have for Bitcoin. And also this is something like we are helping the transition for Bitcoin from being a really risky asset, pretty much like a technology company stock stuff, to being actually a commodity. That's my opinion. Thanks.
Yeah, so I believe we're at a defining moment for Bitcoin. So the key question here is about if we're going to make Bitcoin versatile to do much more, what should happen on Bitcoin network itself, and what should be more modularized or extended by other services, right? So what Bitcoin is really good at, and I think it's going to be remembered by the world, is more of the strong consensus as a settlement layer and also as an asset itself. So if we want to extend or utilize that asset, for various purposes, we do need to have modules that works on data. Either this is about indexing, this is about availability. We also need to think about, okay, so where do we do where the execution layer should be to land this asset, right? So and also, okay, so if we're gonna have all those externalized components, how do we anchor them back to the security of Bitcoin? So that alignment towards Bitcoin security is also very important. So this is why we have spent so much time to look at some of the available options. In this case, it's Babylon. to look at using the Bitcoin economic power to secure other services. Because in this way, all the services are aligned, and we have more confidence in terms of all the services are secure enough. Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of kind of smart contract capabilities, Bitcoin was created as a store of value. So script, which is the native smart contract language, is very binary, it's very basic. So pure DeFi, pure gaming, a lot of different use cases. It just doesn't have the complex functionality that smart contracts need. So there's a real need in the market to be EVM compatible in the sense of being able to enable complex smart contracts. And then that could really give birth to kind of BTC fi. That could give birth to the Bitcoin ecosystem being a place of issuance, trading, and you can trade far more than just ordinals and rooms. Like it could become a venue for price discovery. The liquidity is there. If you just think about that market share versus TVL equation, that I spoke through earlier, it's 1.2 trillion versus a billion, right? So some of those challenges around not being able to execute complex smart contracts, that EVM hook opens you up to a broader ecosystem. And it really just enables some of that liquidity to be able to flow into DeFi apps, into gaming, into a lot of different venues. Maybe we get more DEXs that are built upon maybe not the native Bitcoin ecosystem because it's a bit slow, right? 10 minutes and 60 minutes for finality, but on mirrored ecosystems, to plug exSat, potentially exSat, but also others. So I really think that the complex smart contract side of things, it unlocks a lot. BTC fi could really start to take off because the liquidity is there, but you do really have to be conscious of the ideological nature of Bitcoin. Like if all of us had 6 Bitcoin, we don't want to move our assets around. Like that's our retirement, that's our mortgage, that's our savings. Like I'm going to tread carefully. So if I do something, I want it to be safe and secure. I don't want to lose the ownership of my underlying asset, but I do want to earn yield. But I'm going to tread carefully, tread slowly before I kind of dive head in.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, if you have something to add,
So I think as the other speakers were saying, right, for Bitcoin overall, it's very important to be programmable for developers to actually be able to build. We've seen new concepts around helping smart contracts to be more programmable, like what Julie mentioned. Babylon, right? So they have this new concept of unspent transaction conflict. So with that concept, you have many things that you can build over on top of it. So like different kinds of, kind of like asset management, right? They give you access to different kinds of different protocols, like like rental, that you can earn your yields, but you don't have to go deeper and understand every single concept of the smart contract by yourself, those protocols, because you have access to a more like a centralized asset manager like Babylon or like Merlin. So you can work with them and you can still enjoy the yields and on a more safe, I guess, kind of procedure that you can still participate. On top of it, then we can talk about application layer, DA layer, so that the overall Bitcoin ecosystem can be more moving.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's kind of pull the thread a bit further with this idea of how we've enabled this ability to separate the settlement layer from the execution layer with some of these new advances like Babylon as well as exSat. So as we know with exSat, what we're effectively creating is a decentralized state index for all UTXO data. I'm interested to know if there's any specific use cases you guys envision being enabled by this that you're most excited about moving forward.
Maybe I'll start quickly. I think maybe one of the most immediate use cases, the majority of Bitcoin layer 2s, they leverage off-chain data indexing. And there's a really good reason for that. To be able to put 170 million rows and 96 gigabytes of data on-chain in a fully decentralized manner that you can access is really hard. To have that data availability layer, RAM, that we can access, most people don't have that. It's millions of dollars and a lot of resource, right? So I can kind of envision them going, okay, I'll utilize the state data index and power my current use case because it saves me resource and it saves me time and it's just logical. It's more transparent. But most users wouldn't know that they use off-chain data indexing. So I think that's one part. I think a really much larger part, what I'm really excited for is really the kind of growth of BTC fi. Dare I say the kind of word like that. So it'll seem like, I really think there'll be larger issuance and trading of a lot of different assets on the network. And I think it really empowers a lot of use cases. And, talking to one of the guys from the solutions and kind of growth teams, talking to renewable energy companies about potentially having RWAs that, they're issued and you can trade them on the exSat network. And, you can really see this kind of growth of, some of the DeFi elements that we've seen Ethereum be really famous for, really migrating across to really the exSat network and BTC-Fi, because you have access to this really powerful data. We compare Bitcoin to gold, but that data is gold data then. And so you've got access to this. You can query it, you can read it, you can write to it, and you can deploy complex smart contracts based on a data variable. So you see something, you can deploy a smart contract, and that's really unique in the space. And it just takes away that challenge of 10 minutes and 60 minutes for finality. So I think BTC-Fi will see a real growth. And then I think immediately it just really helps layer 2 0.
Just to add on to Tristan's point, last year when inscription was going crazy, everyone was actually curious to find out, okay, where do I get that indexer? So it turns out every single project is through their own indexer. Can you trust that? Right? So there were already discussions on how do we run a decentralized indexer for Bitcoin, and that's something that we see clearly that exSat has understand the need and trying to work on it. And even go further than that, right? If Bitcoin is going to do more using OpenCat or some other mechanisms, having that database is super crucial. If we think about Ethereum, okay, why do we need archive node? Why do we need the graph and many other services around it? Because those are the things that are fundamental for DeFi. And you need a very trustworthy and expandable solution towards that. So this is something that we see is really needed in this space, and we see the very strong relevance for exSat.
I think when we speak about data availability, so having data all unpacked off-chain and then having a great way to verify all the data and to support instant audit for the data is very important. So unfortunately, I don't think even Celestia can support instant data audit. So how do you ensure that the entirety of the data is not sacrificed? So I really do hope to see that kind of problem get solved with the Bitcoin ecosystem, with the new technology that Aztec is developing. Because as we all know, it's a consensus. Bitcoin is a consensus. It's very important not to sacrifice any of the consensus here. That's the core. So and I think that's really important, and I really look forward to see after mainnet launch how efficient it can be, and also how affordable it can be for the data availability layer for potential developers in the future. Because even Celestia, the best data availability options out there for Ethereum is still very, very expensive for just a regular application can really afford, right? And then I also understand that Async is working on the new consensus combining POW and POS. I think that's great, and we'd definitely love to learn more. And further, we can educate all of our protocols on how to get access to the ecosystem fast and smoothly.
So I will take more the aspect from the end user's perspective. So basically, Bitcoin is we got a lot of OGs started. Basically, that's a first ever coin ever, basically in the crypto space. And for late commerce in the last cycle, the DeFi cycle, or basically this cycle, right? Many people enter the space without even trying Bitcoin. That could be long-term problem, right? We got holders, but we don't have users. These are basically two different things. And Bitcoin, because of its kind of like a lack of composability and programmability, right? Kind of like it's super hard for people to actually got an intuition on it, what it's like to actually use Bitcoin other than just use it as a payment method. So until like last year, the inscription stuff coming, then people say, oh hey, actually this is a very good way for people to actually play with the Bitcoin, even you don't start with just a very small kind of amount. And yeah, like the other speaker said, like data availability and indexer was one very crucial kind of infrastructure in there. I myself, I tried to make like a centralized indexer with my own index, and it failed miserably. The reason for that is, yes, you can decentralize the indexer by having like a multiple operators of the indexers, but you gotta have like a decentralized validators as well, because otherwise it doesn't make sense. You gotta centralize the points whatsoever. So it's super hard to build this kind of a network. If you do, then that's completely probably worth $1 billion kind of a product out there anyway. So yeah, like I'm really happy to see someone's actually like doing that to enable more programmability and accessibility on the Bitcoin things, because we do need that to cover like a newer generation in the cryptocurrency world. We need them to have a taste in Bitcoin. Otherwise, probably next cycle they're gonna be like way more like a Solana maxis or other competitive layer 1 maxis than Bitcoin holders. That's something that we don't want to see. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, we're really excited about this solution we pulled together for decentralized validators to kind of close the loop with all of that. I really love what you said about converting holders into users here. And maybe the last question that I'll ask to the panel, I'd be interested in each of your perspectives about kind of this next wave of growth that we see. So is there any specific sector that you see with the advent of either this data availability layer, this layer 1.5 that is exSat, or some of these L2s that are coming to Bitcoin? What is the primary channel of growth that you see next in terms of industry sector or use case? What are you most excited about?
Okay, what's the next? Okay, so I think the first thing is I take a very economic perspective to say this. So in this, you see every single POW or POS, basically the compatible layer 1s out there like Ethereum or Solana, they are essentially having an issue like a later on. So they basically everyone is inflationary. And when you have an inflationary token, you got to find a way to eliminate the bubbles. The best way to eliminate the bubble is actually to have your token or your coin as a port token. So as a measure of the value against every single asset they launch, you just like US dollars against like US stocks, or basically US based kind of assets, right? You gotta. So that's a way that you give a reason for people to hold it for longer term, not just for the belief in this asset, but also because they do need it. Right. Solana did this, as in like they have like all the meme tokens, they have all of the like new emerging projects out there. So that's the reason for people to hold Solana without considering Solana must go up like forever, so I can hold it. No, because I always got like some new assets emerging, and the price can go up, or basically there's some volatility, some opportunities out there for me, but to participate them, I have to hold Solana, right? Exactly the same way in Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is kind of very different. We have a way much stronger kind of a consensus out there. But basically, like in regards to the audience, so I believe that the Bitcoin must not follow the same pathway as a Solidity, right? Because we follow, say, like a DeFi, or we have like one side of the liquidity provision, and the other side is the tokens. So as I say, like a Uniswap kind of paradigm. So people playing inscriptions and people playing DeFi or people playing with NFTs are completely 3 different groups of people, right? So I'm happy to see like something like exSat. So you supporting the native Bitcoin programmability, you supporting like a Solidity, the EVM compatible. So it means that you are tapping all the group of people, right? They can be fielding to the same playground with a unified kind of liquidity provision model using Bitcoin as the core token to measure the value of all of them. Right, and on top of it, because that's where the real yield comes from. Real yield comes from the issues of the new asset, and real yield comes from all the fee generated, and that would make security something valuable to protect. right? And that will give way bigger value for the security providers to capture the value of something they are guarding. This is my opinion. So, like,
I might go quickly. I'm a very bad perp trader, but a perp trader nonetheless. And I'm really excited to see kind of BTC-fi take off and really be able to see kind of the DeFi landscape that see it's native to Ethereum. Not migrate, but really like tap into the Bitcoin ecosystem and see some more applicability and more users in the ecosystem that aren't just long-term, Bitcoin holders. Because the truth is, if you have that amount of Bitcoin, you don't really want to trade it. It's the most valuable asset. It continues to go up. It's probably one of the only assets that you do have confidence will go up. But you can carve off a small portion of Bitcoin, and maybe it's a gas kind of mechanism, and we start to see more issuance and more trading on the Bitcoin network, whether that's layer 2s, layer 1.5 like ours, and then seeing more perp trading opportunities, because that's why Solana meme coins have really gone crazy, because it's opportunity. You see Trump go crazy when there's a debate, he's about to debate Kamala Harris or whatever, and you see the token go up. And as a trader, you always want that. You always want to try and find that, 50x in a day, and you scalp trade it and you take it off. And so I'm really excited to see BTC Fi start to take off and not necessarily catch up with Ethereum, because it's got a long way to go, but to be able to be another venue with which you can trade and make a potential profit. And then also just yield. I think, there's quite a few entities, Babylon, Bouncebit, us as well, that are providing yield opportunities. And I think that's important, but without sacrificing ownership. And that's why you see a lot of wrapped versions of tokens, because you maintain your ownership, whether that's a custody solution, a centralized exchange, or whatever it is, and then you get a wrapped version back, so you still earn yield, but you don't lose ownership.
So I think everyone loves Bitcoin, right? So while we're building Bitcoin Fi, here, I feel it's going to be a different way from how the Ethereum DeFi has evolved. But the fact is, all the EVM chains are trying to get BTC assets onto them and get into their DeFi, right? Because this is going to be the largest growth driver for them in terms of TVL. And also in terms of narrative. So for example, when we launched UniBTC, which is the largest one on Babylon, we took 30% market share for the phase 1 in terms of yield as well. Compound came to us, even Eigenlayer came to us. And so right now, Eigenlayer recognizes UniBTC as the only BTC, yield-bearing BTC to secure Eigenlayer. So which we found really interesting. So they're not against, go beyond Ethereum and use a Bitcoin asset for risk taking. So is Compound, because they see this is another push to go beyond WBTC and really make BTC assets work. We're definitely very positive in terms of how people are going to use Bitcoin. And personally, I do think that if we're going to have millions of retailers holding Bitcoin, even an option to borrow against Bitcoin without selling it, it's going to be a very interesting use case.
So things and both sectors and bullish about, right? In the Bitcoin ecosystem overall. Okay. I think two things. So one is capital and the other one is users. These two combined equals liquidity, and that's the core of everything. So I think whatever on the capital side can improve capital efficiency and being able to be a gateway for access to mass amounts of capital, that's one sector that I'm excited about. And then the other side is users. So whatever applications that can bring in large number of users and also increase transactions and other kind of activities for the users. That's one other sector. So that's like, ride hailing, that's meals and entertainment, that's gaming. And then for the capital side, whether that you can offer a good yield with good risk control, or that you can become a payment gateway. I think that's the other sector. And I think everything here that I just talked about can be achieved if the vision of asset can be built in the near future. So this is the last question. May the future of asset and Bitcoin be as bright as this light that's giving us a good 10 after the 10 panel.
Yeah, I've got one over there. It's a lovely thing. But let me just take a second to thank Vincent, Ciara, Julian, Tristan, all of you guys for your perspective, kind of giving us a vision into the future of what's to come as we bridge Bitcoin well beyond what it's done to date. Everybody, can we get a round of applause for our panelists, and thank you for your time.